Welcome to the Infertility Feelings podcast. I am Jessie Brown and Doug is actually off today. And I am interviewing, I'm so excited, my mom. Oh, it's so brilliant. I'm so excited. I love how uncomfortable you are.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
In the best way.
We'll see how this goes.
This is going to be great. You're going to be great. I think people are going to be really fascinated to know what you think. And I don't think a lot of people talk about, what's it like for, a lot of people don't talk about infertility in general, but when you do talk about it, you more talk about yourself and not how it can have a ripple effect on your family and your friends. So I think people are going to be really interested to hear how it affected you. And what was it like for me to do fertility treatments for you? What was it like for me to move on? If you don't know, we have I have an adopted son who's 6 years old, and we are fostering a 9-year-old. So what's it like being an adoptive grandma and a foster grandma?
My favorite part, obviously.
So we're going to talk about all that. So let's just start with where were you born?
I'm from Kentucky originally, northern Kentucky, and my family is still there. All of my family just got back from a visit recently. And I grew up there. And then when I was in my 20s, my girlfriend and I decided to move to California. So we did a radical jump across the country and both met our husbands here. So we are.
And you've been here ever since?
I've been here ever since.
There was a time we were going to move to Kentucky.
Yes. We considered, really wanted to go back there and be closer to my family when you guys were younger and we could get away with it, not before you got too old, because then that's harder, but it didn't work out. We stayed here and you guys met your wonderful mates, so I wouldn't have it any other way.
It's good. I'm glad that we stayed there. Not that Kentucky wouldn't have been great, but I am glad that we're here. Let's go back to, so Kentucky is obviously more of a southern way of living. How would you describe your childhood? As in like that, and as in talking about, let's get into it, talking about infertility. Was that something, it's like you came from a huge family. Both of your parents had a lot. Your parents both came from 10, right? 10 each.
8, I think, my mom's side and 5 on my dad's side. So our family was huge. I had a million cousins and first cousins, second cousins, and we all were a pretty tight community, I would say. We would go out to the country every weekend and spend time with our relatives. So everybody just got married, grew up, got married, and had littles. That's just the way it went.
Was there anybody in your life that you felt like struggled to have kids?
Not to my knowledge. No.
So it would be fair to infertility wasn't something that even you were aware of or talked about.
I think I was aware of it, but I was not, it never factored into my thinking about how it would affect my life or my family. And Randy and I didn't have any trouble getting pregnant. So I never had any reason to doubt, that it would just happen naturally.
So let's fast forward. How many kids do you have?
I have 3 children. Jessie's my oldest.
I am the oldest.
And she is awesome. And I have my middle daughter. Can I say their names?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah. Abby. Hi, Abby. Abby and her husband have a little. And then my youngest, Ben, is married to Sarah. And they are expecting in the 1st of 2021.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
I know.
Being an aunt is the best thing ever.
Stoked.
Okay, so you have 3 kids. You're moving right along. Doug and I meet each other. We get married, and 5 to 6 years later, start having the conversation about wanting to have kids. And what was that like for you first hearing that we were struggling?
Well, I wasn't too worried at first. I thought maybe it was just, a matter of time before things would work out the way that you had wanted them to. But I think over time, then it became concerning. And it was difficult. You love your kids so much and you want the best for them. You want them to get the desires of their heart. And when that doesn't happen, it's really painful as a parent.
It is.
Yeah.
I can only imagine now being a parent, Like I didn't think about that a lot. I think in the infertility journey, you're so rightfully so tuned into everything going on with you and your body and your temperature of your body and all that you're kind of more self-focused. And I think sometimes I did not think about how I didn't have a lot of time to stop, but stop and think about like, oh, I wonder what this is like for my mom. And I wonder this is like for my mother-in-law and my family. So yeah, it's emotional for everybody.
Yeah, it is. You don't want to make it about yourself in the moment. I mean, I've heard multiple times, even on your podcast, sharing, people sharing, okay, this is what it was like for you as the woman going through it.
Totally.
And then Doug, what was his perspective as the male, and others have shared kind of their unique perspective. So it's, again, letting you have your journey and trying to be supportive and loving, and yet really hurting yourself. Oh, dang.
Already tears. We're only 6 minutes in and there's already tears.
But luckily we have paper towels.
Yeah, I did not have any tissues, so I'm so sorry. Talking about infertility, I don't have any tissues. What's wrong with me? Okay. Yeah. What was that whole season like for you, as in almost, did you feel like you could talk to me about it a lot? Did you feel like, what was that like to have like, oh my gosh, you're going through this emotional journey with me and you can see me hurting, but how did you balance that of like letting me deal with my stuff? Because I feel like you actually did it well. That's why I'm asking. And I think,
well, it's good to hear you say that, because I don't know that I didn't know how to do this. I didn't know how to show you that we were supporting you and trying to be in the journey with you, and just not imposing our own struggle on you, but at the same time, so I would always think, okay, I know if some process is happening, like you're having a IUI, and it's like wanting to call and say, how'd it go? And then realizing, oh, well, she's going to call me. I know she's going to call me first if something happens that's good. So how do I show that I care and not be overbearing, like letting you have your space for your journey? I think waiting is always hard. Waiting is just nobody's favorite, right? And it's so often a part of our life and struggles that we deal with. But waiting with somebody is another level of learning how to balance that. Like we wanted you to know we were waiting with you and we were standing with you, and not making it about us, right? Like, but Randy and I both, we wanted to be young grandparents. And
talk about that.
Oh gosh, we loved raising our kids more than anything in the world. It's like the best thing we ever did. I mean, not that our kids are perfect, but they're pretty
There was
awesome.
some bumps in the road.
Especially with this one. No, I'm just kidding.
We all had our phases. Yeah. That's another podcast for another time.
But that was the greatest joy of my life and our lives, was raising our kids, and just
that
watching.
Was fun.
Oh my gosh, watching you guys change and grow, and you're such radically different people in personality.
Very different.
And that was just an awesome mix. So I think the beauty of watching that unfold in our family, and then just desiring that so much for you. And again, being surprised that it wasn't something that was just happening naturally, that it was a battle. It was something that you had to work really hard to build your family in a very untraditional way, and yet in a beautiful way. That pain was redeemed for beauty.
So funny, because I hear Doug say all the time, because we talk about this all the time, of like how he didn't want to be an old dad, that he wanted to be a young dad. But I haven't made the correlation of like, right, even grandparents want to be young grandparents.
Yeah.
So
that's
because
really I had always
huge.
planned on being very involved in my grandkids' lives, and just it's just a unique joy to be a grandparent.
I think an aunt being is fantastic. So I can't imagine being a grandma.
So good. Yeah. So, just longing for that, and not understanding why it's not happening when two great people like you and Doug that, have great genes and are great people, Like, that's a tough one to swallow.
Yeah. That was the toughest for me to swallow, is I would look at Doug and I and be like, wow, we would be great parents. Why is this not happening? Like, oh, it's so hard. And then I would go to places like Disneyland or something and then just see like the worst parenting ever, and just like be like, oh, I could do that better. Like, and then leave Disneyland sad when Disneyland is the happiest place on earth. And that just feels odd. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's just so hard. Infertility is incredibly unfair. You know what I mean? And you could be, the best parent ever and it could still happen to you. So.
Right. I really felt that when we would think, you have beautiful eyes, but when you were a baby, they were just like the biggest part about you. It's like your eyes were the first thing people saw and noticed. And to think that wasn't going to be passed down and just, everybody in a journey of grieving, you have little moments along the way where something new hits you. And so I think back to the eyes specifically, and Doug's tall lankiness. I always wanted to see what that would look like.
Can you imagine big old eyes and this tall, lanky kid? Ooh, maybe it was good. I'm just kidding. Yeah. That's so funny. Okay. So yeah, just the grieving of a dream. Yes. For me, I was the kind of person, I don't know if I've ever told you this. I'm the kind of person that sits in a wedding and imagine what the people's kids would look like. I always do that. When they're walking down the aisle and you have that moment of like, oh, they're just getting married. And I would always think like, I wonder what their kids are going to look like. Yeah. I always thought about that. So that was a really big, hard thing for me moving on was, oh my gosh, we're not going to have kids that look like us. That was really, really, really hard to let go of.
Yeah.
And it only took grief to get through it.
Yeah.
But I never thought about, I have thought about this, but not often, of like, that's a generation for you too. Now you're grieving that there's going to be no generation through me.
Right. I mean, it's the bloodline thing.
Yeah.
It's like we knew that for you and Doug, it wouldn't be, genetically your children. So we were maybe short-sighted in ways, because what played out was ultimately amazing and beautiful.
Yeah. But they also look nothing like us.
No, they don't look anything like us.
No, they have no genes. There's obviously no genes there. Okay. So letting go of some dreams, what was it like for you? And I think people would be very curious. What was it like for you to watch me take shots? Like, I think one time I took a trigger shot in your back room.
You did?
Yeah.
On my bed. Doug gave you a shot laying down. The whole family gathered around. Yeah. That's how weird we are.
So awkward. That's not normal. That's not a typical experience to like gather the family around. And it wasn't my brother, okay? My brother was not there. I think it was my sister and you and Doug. And that was it. But what was that like for you?
Well, just an incredibly new world. Because I knew very little about what these processes actually look like when you're getting treatments for fertility. I was just shocked by all the stuff that you had to do, all the hoops you had to jump through. And you're a very enthusiastic person by nature. And you were, even in that process, you were very, very hopeful.
I was.
You were. And so that was what was really devastating, is after watching you go through all this with just the absolute best attitude and, being positive and hopeful and exactly what you would want, then
no. This is what it's about. It's feelings. The Infertility Feelings podcast.
Come with tears.
Yes.
Tears and feelings.
Tears and feelings.
But then, when those things did not work, it was just like the ultimate disappointment. And I don't know, it was just pretty devastating. Felt very hopeless at times, So.
What was the conversation between you and Dad in that time?
Well, I think our heart was that we would just support you and stand with you. We prayed for you. That was a big part of our process, was just, praying that God would see fit to give you a baby. And so that's where we were. We just spent a lot of time talking about what great parents you would be and all the great things about you and Doug that we wanted to see and couldn't wait to have running around our house as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think that also has to do with me being the only child, not only child, oldest child. You know what I mean? Like you probably even have more of that of like, wow, this is the first one that's normally, typically the oldest is who gets pregnant first. So that was,
Right.
That's gotta be odd too. Were you angry?
Oh yeah. I was angry.
Talk about that.
Well, I think it's human nature to look at in other like situations where you hear on the news where people are abusive to their kids, or even experiencing it in a real life situation where folks don't value the lives they've been entrusted with. Man, I just, it's a hard thing to reconcile is how that can happen. Like how can two people who are so loving and giving and ready and just equipped and will take it serious to the nth degree, not be entrusted with that, and then people who are very dishonoring to their kids and even physically abusive. And then they have like 8 kids. So that's just a hard thing to reconcile, and I think I will never know the answer to that.
Yeah, life.
Yeah, I think it will be a question.
It's like when someone really awesome dies, you're like, oh, I don't know if I'll ever get that.
Yeah.
That really sucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. How do you feel like Dad was in this time? Because we love Randy. I love my dad so much, but feelings are not his number one thing that not that he's not good at, but I feel like he's grown from this situation. I would say that it's like, well, we have to talk about how we feel all the time and how unfair this is and how angry we are. So I feel like that helped him. What do you feel like it was like for Dad?
Well,
to have me go through this.
You'd be surprised at, maybe he doesn't always express it as well to you. I mean, I think he's come such a long way in that.
I think grandkids helped him.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Grow.
And truly, this whole experience grew us as a family, I would say. It has implications all over the place with how we don't take things for granted. Like, when somebody gets pregnant in our family, it's a big deal.
So true.
We could show you a video.
Yeah, of just my brother getting pregnant or not my brother getting pregnant, my sister-in-law being pregnant. You would have thought, everyone was given $1 million in that same video. Like, you could replace like getting pregnant or getting $1 million. Like our reaction is so huge.
Yeah. So I think there's just a natural gratefulness that comes with, when someone has struggled so much and you've experienced so much of the pain with them, then just an appreciation for the gift of life.
So true. And I think because there's a lot of people out there that obviously don't have a relationship like we do, and they want it desperately, but maybe there's some unhealth there or some past issues or whatever. How do you feel like? Do you feel like I allowed you to come in, but then there was also just a balance? Like, how did we do that? Like what would your advice be to someone who wants that kind of thing of like doing the trigger shot in their mom's bedroom, and then, cause I think it's so beautiful that it's like, you also, Dad is softened from this experience. You have learned, you don't take things for granted as much, but if you don't have, your community around you to kind of go through that with you, then those things cannot happen. So what's your advice to someone of like wanting to either a mom listening that has a daughter that's struggling with infertility or a daughter that is struggling to include their family and include their community?
Yeah. I think you just have to have a mindset out of the gate that is embrace the awkward. Embrace the awkward. There's a lot of awkward moments where you're like, should I call and check on him? Should I speak up now? Am I just going to remind her of how much painfulness that's going on?
And I always say to that, I'm always thinking about it.
Yes.
So you're not going to remind me.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true a lot across the board, really. But as a parent trying to care, it's like walking the balance between letting them have their experience and their journey and expressing along the way that you are with them and that you are present even though you're not physically there, your heart is there. Your heart is connected to their heart, and what they're experiencing is very dear to you. So, yeah, I don't know how we did it well. I don't know if
I think it was twofold. I just had a therapist. We were on one of our courses we were filming. She said, you always need to play the first chord of inviting someone into your life. Because I think people just think, oh, they should know how to care for me, or they should know what to do. My mom should know that I'm sad. But it's like, no, you need to play the first chord. And I love that of like, I think I played the first chord of like bringing it to you, bringing what was happening to us. Yes. This is how I'm doing. And then, but also it took a first chord in you to be like, I'm here for you. But I think that's what's hard is I think with a mom, naturally you, in every aspect of me, you've picked me up. You've taken care of it. You've, kissed my boo-boos. You've, made my path easier in a way.
Yeah.
So how did you balance that of not being like, I'm just going to take this pain away and I want to help you and do all that?
I think it starts long before this moment in your relationship is trying not to fix things for your kids. And as much as that goes against the grain of who we are as parents, that is just like, I think I was always trying to understand what is God doing in you? Like how, if I rush in and save you, I'm going to rob you from the experience of learning and growing. And so for us, that started in junior high with you.
Again, podcast for another time.
But in the infertility journey, that already was a part of my mindset. So as much as this was kind of like the biggest thing I couldn't take from you, I couldn't help. I could only just love and support. And I do feel like I was just like the puppy dog waiting to check in with you or, be present. I too was thinking about it all the time,
I think that's
because
something
you're hurting, and if you're hurting, I'm hurting.
Yeah. So you would say you kind of built up that boundary of like not wanting to fix everything for your kids beforehand. So that was kind of already a practice that you had already done.
Yes, not perfectly, but I think I did. I was aware of that. Yes, I was aware of that.
And I think that's something that you often forget in your infertility journey, again, because you're so self-focused that you forget that you're hurting as well. And I think my biggest advice to people that are trying to build their community, and it doesn't have to be your family, your safe people, is giving them grace, because they're trying to do the best they can and they're hurting as well. And when you're hurting, you often don't say the perfect thing,
right?
Because you're sad for them. And so I think from the person that's struggling with infertility, that side of looking at you is like giving your community grace of like, they're not going to do it perfect. But then you also need to stand up for yourself and be like, actually, that's not helpful. Or thank you for sharing that. Or I think I need blank. I think I just need you to support me, Mom. I think I just need you to give me some space. I think I just need I don't have all the answers. And I think also not putting, for the community, that they're not putting the burden on you educating them. I think that's one thing that people could do is like you, I think, did your own research. Yes, didn't know the ins and outs of everything, but.
Right. I don't know that I answered well the question about Randy and his feelings. But
yes.
Part of his process is finding out all the things.
He's a 5 on the Enneagram.
He's a 5 on the Enneagram, and he dove into gathering facts and things, which some of it was very helpful. And so that was part of his process. But he also had to process the hard emotion of thinking that you may not be able to have a family.
Right.
So that's something we did, I think, together. We tried to lean into each other and have our process and not burden you with our process that we were going through. So,
what was your grieving like? Okay, let's go to the part of the story where Doug and I come to you and we go, we're going to pursue adoption. And we also gave you our science of like, it's not great looking for Doug. It's not great looking for me. And we don't have any more money to do IVF. So we're going to move on. What was that like for you that season?
Well, I think it was, again, we're entering this whole unpredicted situation, like life path we know nothing about. I know nothing about adoption. I know I love adoption, and I think it's an amazing thing, but I don't really know a lot about it. So I think, again, that was an educational process. And watching you have failed adoptions
Yeah. Oh, we had 2 failed adoptions. Anyone
is
doesn't know that?
the most painful thing. Infertility was very difficult. I mean, no doubt about it. But those things,
I know. Oh, that was so hard.
having, we're just ready to love a little one.
Yes.
We're so excited about adding to our family. And
Well, I think you finally are like, oh, this is how we can do that. Now let's put that up. Let's put all that rocky journey aside and go into this. And you're so hopeful and so excited. And I had, it was very down to the wire. Like one of our adoptions was only a month away from giving birth. So we had, the registry. We had, my sister had bought everything to do a shower. You know what I mean? Like we were in it. We were in it, ready to go. I had a baby reveal with the balloon and saying it was a girl and all that. So, I mean, we were in it. So that made it so much more devastating. That was so hard that time.
Oh my gosh.
And I think it's because it was compounded on infertility. It was just a snowball of, just more disappointment.
Yeah. Yeah. And your snowball is perfect because all this grief that you felt from the infertility journey and now this adoption process looks like this is going to be, unpredictable and crazy. And when those 2 adoptions failed, oof, that was probably the darkest time.
Darkest for me too.
Yeah. You would.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I cry more about that than I do infertility sometimes. Like I can still, I know, I mean, I didn't obviously cried enough tears for infertility. Yeah. I'm not going to say that, but I can still, it still gets me. Like it's like right here of those 2 failed. Not that I didn't want her to parent her child. It wasn't about that. It was about loss and just being so involved and not only emotionally, but financially also. And I think that's something that is not often talked about, or it's a misconception about adoption is that IVF, you give all this money to and it might work out. And then adoption, you give all this money to and it will work out. That's not necessarily the case. We're case in point that, or like, we had 2 adoptions that we gave money to that did not work out.
Right.
And to be quite frank, we're still paying off the debt from that.
Not just a little money, but a lot of money.
Yeah. So that was really hard.
It's never about the money.
Of course.
I mean, that plays into it.
Of course.
Even now on a monthly basis. But it was the readiness to love and just get to know this little one.
Sorry.
That audio is going to have to all be done.
Yeah, I know. Or we'll just leave it. Sorry for the little break of the fire truck.
A little emergency here.
A little emergency. Not us, but around us. Yeah, that was a really dark time.
Yeah,
it was. 2 adoptions not working out.
It was.
Yeah. What was your feelings?
We were devastated.
Yeah.
It was just another level of pain that we were experiencing you go through that we couldn't do anything about. Yeah. And so it was very painful and hard to see beyond this darkness that it's ever going to be different.
Yeah. I really felt hopeless in that time. We had already had our son living with us, but this was our time that we were trying to adopt again and grow our family again. So, but those failed adoptions is what made me go back and be like, oh, I think there's some unprocessed grief here with infertility. And so it's weird to look back now. I can still get really emotional, but it's the thing that sparked me to really go into therapy and really grieve. Because for me, I wanted an infant so bad. I mean, you and me, we're infant.
We love our babies.
We love our babies. And I'm good at it. Give me all the babies. I walk in a room, there's a baby in it, I'm going to grab it. If the mom says it's okay. But it's like, I'm going to grab it. So that I realized that I had put so much on having to have an infant and having it, solve and fix my broken heart. And that is what took me back to therapy. And I just stopped. And that's when I could have hope again for maybe it's not going to work out like I thought it was going to, but that made me open to any age. And that's where we got into foster care.
So that was that was after Matthew came into the picture?
Yeah. Those 2 failed adoptions were after Matthew came.
Okay. I'm surprised to remember it that way. I didn't remember it that
Yeah.
way.
Matthew was 3 and 4 on those.
Yeah.
And that was devastating because he knew.
He knew.
Especially with the first one. He knew. He even had met the birth family. And he was so excited. That's a podcast for another time.
Yeah.
When Matthew's 18 years old, I'm going to interview him and be like, what was that like?
But to get our little boy.
I
Matthew,
know. So what was that like?
Oh, gosh, you guys. I mean, this kid. I dropped it.
It's okay.
Sorry, I got another one.
It's okay. We're going to get another tissue.
This little guy is such a package of joy. He is the most unbelievable little guy ever. Oof.
He is, especially when he was 18 months
Oh
old.
my gosh, he was like a butterball turkey that rolled up.
Rolled in. Just rolled in.
He was such a gift. Such a gift. And
What was that like? So we found our son came to us through a family that was potentially going to adopt him. And it wasn't because they didn't want to adopt him. It was because they were having marriage issues quickly after they took Matthew into their home. So they feel like they couldn't give him the best life, which is totally understandable. And so they contacted us through
a family member of ours.
Who saw our son at a party and was like, who is this cutie? And then called me at work as I'm cutting someone's bangs and was like, hey, there's an 18-month-old boy. Want to adopt him? And I was like, what? And then it was just, and then there's so many, that's not what I was expecting. I was expecting a girl. I was expecting, blue eyes like me. And I had all these criteria. So that took me a second to be like, this is not how I thought it was going to go. But then 4 days later, we drive to a park and we meet him and you are with us. And my sister, Abby, was with us too. What was that like?
Well, we laid eyes on this little boy and just our hearts were instantly bound. I mean, I don't even know how that happens, but what's so true is that he was probably cautious about us. Like, who are these wild people?
Yeah.
And they seem to be really crazy about
Energetic.
me.
We're energetic.
Yeah. But he was just such a gift. And from that day, I mean, we literally fell in love with him that day. And Jesse and Doug began the pursuit of bringing him home, which was full of its own trials and challenges. But this little gift of a guy, I'm telling you, to think, it's hard to make that comparison. But if I had not known Matthew, if we didn't have him in our family, gosh, we'd be such different people.
Yes, it's true.
He is the best thing. He is just a gift.
And you guys have a very special bond.
We do.
Yeah. What's that like? What's that like to, because a lot of people talk about like with adoption, like you will connect, you will love them the same as your own child, but no one really talks about the grandma. What's it like to be an adopted grandma and connect to a child that didn't come out of one of your children?
Yeah. Well,
and doesn't look like us at all.
No, he does not. He and I don't know. I don't feel like I had to work really hard at loving him. It was an instant thing. And he was ready to receive love. He was very, cuddly and cozy and just was, I don't know, whatever I came up with it. He was game and we spent a ton of time together.
Yeah, you did.
So that, I just look at how I'm not saying the pain is totally redeemed, but in this moment, when I think about the fact that he would not have been a part of our life had it not been for this epic journey that you were on, I'm just filled with gratitude because I can't imagine not having him in our lives. He is just the best.
He is the best.
He's crazy. He's a little crazy.
He's crazy,
now.
and
Six.
He's like 17 feet tall now. But
his legs
he's
are
not
really
as
long.
he
and
wants
his
to be
feet
as cuddly, but he's so gangly.
Yeah, he's 6, and we wear the same shoe size. So,
yes, you do.
We're very proud of that.
Yeah.
But I just think that it's remarkable. That's a surprise in life. As much as these other things are surprising in a very difficult way, this is a surprise in life that I just never knew. I could literally meet someone and instantly fall head over heels for them. And with that little boy.
He's a special one.
He's special.
He is. So what would your advice be to someone who, if a grandma is listening and their child is going to adopt a child, what would your advice be to them?
To the grandma?
To the grandma.
Oh, to the grandma. Wow. Just be open. Just staying open to the unpredictable nature of what's happening. And, I think we can get so locked into what we think life should be, this ascension. You go to school, you grow up, you get married, you have kids, and you live happily ever after. Well, it's different. And there are lots of surprising joys along the way if you can just stay open to that and wait with your kids expectantly for that to happen. I don't know.
Yeah. What's the biggest challenge? Is there any challenges in being an adoptive grandma? Like, do you ever feel like, because you have other grandchildren, that is from my sister. She has one child. It's like, is that ever weird? I feel like sometimes people are like, especially people that adopt, it's like, do you love your bio kids more than your adoptive kids? Like, what's that like for you to have adoptive grandchildren and bio grandchildren?
I would say it's just remarkable. Being a grandparent is, it's like the best thing in the world. And I don't know that I can say there's a difference between the two. Obviously I've known one since birth, so that's different. And in your son's case, he has a story that is before us that I still we're learning about, and it's different than what we would have wanted for him. But they're both a gift, and I love being their grandparents. I love seeing them together.
I know,
They
gosh,
are
their
such
bond.
a blast. Yeah.
Because our son has known my niece since birth, that is like the sweetest connection. There's a picture that I think about of her laying on the couch as like 3-month-old, and he has his face right on her face. Just hi. It's the best picture ever.
Yeah, he did not have space issues.
And I think that's what's really cool about that connection is they don't know any different, and they are in love with each other. Like, and that's just so beautiful. I feel like our niece, your grandchild, it's like she's gonna be like, wait, what? He's adopted? Like, no. Like, I feel like that's going to be like a shock to her because she just doesn't see it that way. They are so connected and so bond. So I think that's beautiful in, not only your connection with him, but, her connection with him.
Absolutely.
So then we had the 2 failed adoptions. I went to therapy, and then I came out and I said, I think we want to be foster parents. And what was that like? Because in foster care, if you don't know, 50% of the time they can be reunified with their family, their birth family. So it's definitely more of a riskier situation. What was that like?
Again, another entirely different learning process with how to give of yourself just, completely, never knowing if you're building a relationship or, if you're like, oh, this is going to change next week and I'm going to be expected to have the same relationship with another child. It was a shift again. And I think where I arrived with fostering is, and I think you and I talked about this definitely, because you've taught me so much as you've learned and grown through this. You've taught me so much. And loving a child where they are, where I am, we're just gonna love this baby.
Yep.
And again, not making it about yourself, which is I'm investing in a relationship that will be long term. And
right.
This is a child who needs to be loved today.
Yep.
And we're gonna love this baby and provide for their needs and care for them. And we don't know anything about the future. That is just a privilege, and it's also a really hard.
That's good.
Hard
privilege and hard, yeah.
And hard place to be, and yet I felt like we were the ones to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I definitely know for sure you and Doug were the ones to do it. I think I'm learning and have learned that this is also, we can do this with abandon. We can love this child with abandon, not knowing what the future holds, because that's what we're called to do. Love each other, right? We
That's
love
true.
each other. We love our family members. We love our neighbors. And this little one is in our home for possibly just a season.
Right. What was that like? We had a infant for 3 days. What was that like? That was a whirlwind.
That was a whirlwind. We were so excited.
I know. And I had done all this grieving of of the infancy, and then we got an infant for 3 days. And this case looked very much in the beginning like it was going to be a done deal.
Right.
And then 3 days later, it was not a done deal.
Right.
That was really hard. I remember you coming over.
We went to Target. We bought all of the things. We spent all the money.
All the things. That's also something we don't talk about, is it's like, which was really exciting, which was so hard. It's like, it was so exciting to call you and be like, we got an infant coming. Let's go to Target and drop all that.
And that's what our family does well. We just, okay, we're on mission and we're going to just make this happen for this and buy cribs and buy things and all the things. But, and that one, because it did seem so much like, I mean, you can say, right, that it was a drop off at
it was like a
drop off at a fire station, like seemingly abandoned child. So, I mean,
and then it didn't work out.
That just felt like the best case scenario, and then it didn't work out. So, it was again a whirlwind of activity, and we grieved that. We grieved that because we also knew that your son was holding this little one, and
that was really hard for him.
Yeah,
that was really hard for him.
Yeah. So
really hard. And that's when when watching him go through that, Doug and I thought, we could probably have 1 million kids coming in and out of here, but what's best for our son? What's best for him? And because he had some attachment issues, we decided to go, okay, now we really want to go into the foster to adopt world. And now we have a 9-year-old that is living with us. And what's your relationship like with her? What was that like?
Well, she is also a gift.
She is very much a gift.
A delight, and sweet and kind and nurturing, and a difficult,
situation.
But I just am grateful for every day.
Yeah.
That we have with her, and just pray that our time together is exactly what she needs for this season of her life. The care and the love and the family commitment to her, that she experiences and receives that fully, and knows that she is just loved beyond measure, because she is.
She is.
And she's just
sweet and spice and everything nice. That's what she is.
And she's a firecracker too. So,
and that's going to probably be really great for her in her life.
Right.
Because she's not going to let anyone walk all over her, including me. So,
But I mean, I think one of the challenges is you're parenting like I think I'm parenting like I parented my kids.
Right.
And oftentimes, some of our littles have had issues beyond, like earlier in life, that make it more challenging to consider all of their makeup and what is going to be helpful for them and what is not helpful. Because we've definitely had some times where we're not feeling confident that we handled something well or right, or maybe the child has reacted and we realize, oh, I can see why that was a difficult thing for them. So,
and I think that's what's so great about you and Dad is you have an open posture and you're always open to talk about it. Like Dad babysat both of our kids, a couple weeks ago, and afterwards, the next morning, he called me to tell me about a situation that had happened, and he wanted to make sure he handled it correctly. Like, how flippin' sweet is that? But I think that's what it takes, is being an open posture to learning and growing. And also last week I took a trauma-informed class on fostering. And one of the things they said was having a positive influence on a child's life doesn't need to be very long. That there's sometimes 3rd grade teachers that make such an impression on a kid and it makes their life better forever. It's like, it doesn't have to be this long thing. I thought that was really fascinating, to to hear of like, and I think that's what you are, Mom. I think that's what you are, is you are such a positive influence in their life, and you're showing them, you know, what a family is supposed to be, and you just welcome them with open arms. And I don't think it's a little thing with both of them is going to go so far in their life. So thank you, Mom, for being so open. And I feel like one thing that you and Dad have done well is just open posture of learning and, you know, loving, being all in, but then being all in to be like, help me, help me grow, help me know how to love, because it's just so different. So I think you are a phenomenal person, and thank you for sharing your feelings.
I love you, honey, so much. And
I love you.
To share, and in hopes that someone can just take a glimmer of anything that we've shared is really encouraging, because I was longing for information when I was going through all this, and you were going through all this. I was like just grasping for some understanding of someone else who had walked the path. And though our paths will not look the same, I think there's just such great benefit in sharing. And you and Doug, what you are doing is just...
Oh gosh, you're gonna make me
I'm sorry, but it has to be said. What you're doing is so radically beautiful for this community, and I'm just so proud of you guys.
Thank you, Mom.
Sorry. I got one more paper towel left.
Yeah, one more paper towel left. Good. Is there anything else you would like to say? Anything that you feel that you wanted to make sure that you said, or to a grandma or someone struggling with infertility or whatever? Is there anything else you want to say? Maybe any advice or anything?
Well, I can't emphasize enough that the beauty in the journey outweighs. I can't say outweighs, because the pain is real, and it's very present always. You know, the pain doesn't go away, but the beauty of the journey is going to blow your mind when there is redemption. And we just, you know, those moments where you, like when Matthew Matthew rolled in our front door, he and that relationship I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. So I'm just surprised by the joy that has come from this painful journey.
Yeah. Thank you, Mom.
Love you, Jess.
Love you. I hope that someone has some good takeaways. We are currently holding hands. You can't tell. And my mom has the death grip. Always has. We'll hug you hard, hold your hand hard. So thank you to everyone who is listening, and we hope you have a great day, and we hope that this is a great episode for you. And to keep the conversation going.
Absolutely.
And happy Thanksgiving. This is going to be the Monday. This is going to air the Monday of Thanksgiving. So we thought it'd be perfectly placed, because people might be seeing their families. They might not be because of the coronavirus and all that, but maybe some sort of family Zoom call or something. So hopefully they can take away something helpful around their family. So thank you for listening.
Thanks for having me.